Hi guys, in this video we will talk a little bit about why you should never buy one of the mini sewing machines for your kid. You might end up just giving your kid a bad experience and he or she will stop sewing before you know it. The number one reason is that it's simply just a bad deal. If you were willing to spend just like 10 or 20 bucks more, you could get a real sewing machine from a real brand like Brother. The mini sewing machine costs around 15, 20, up to $50. So spend a little extra buck and get a real machine that will give your kid a really good experience. The throat of the machine or the length of the arm is just too narrow. It's not even a free arm, but we will come back to that. But the throat size or the arm length is so narrow that you can't really do any real projects on it. As soon as you want to move the fabric around, or if you have a piece of fabric to the right of the needle, it won't fit there. The second reason is that you can only get these machines from really low quality brands. It's cheap Chinese brands that you have never heard of for a reason, because the real sewing machine brands like Brothers, Singer, they would never do a crappy sewing machine that isn't really a real sewing machine after all. So there's a reason you haven't heard about the brand before. So before you start Googling it to see if it's a real brand, just don't buy the mini sewing machine because it's not a real sewing machine. The third reason is that these mini sewing machines often do not have the free arm. On a real sewing machine like the one I have here, as soon as you take off the accessory tray, you have access to the free arm. That means that you can do a hem, you can sew something that's formed like a tube, you can do corners and stuff, but if you cannot slide a tube of fabric onto the free arm, there's a lot of stuff you will not be able to do with the machine. And too many of the what they call mini or tiny sewing machines, they're not real sewing machines because when you don't have the option of the free arm, there's so many projects you cannot do. And the next problem with the mini sewing machines is the number of stitches it can do. Many of the mini sewing machines will maybe do like one straight stitch, maybe it will do a zigzag stitch, and that will be about it. It can't really do anything. So as soon as your kid wants to do something creatively, maybe they want to do a nice stitch or some very basic embroidery work, it's just not possible. So before you know it, you will have to upgrade the machine to a real machine. So a better way is to start off with a real sewing machine, as we'll come back to. Another issue is that many of the mini sewing machines are operated by batteries. That means that the motor inside the machine is not really durable and is not strong at all. So if your kid tries to do multiple layers of fabric, the needle might not even punch through the layers of fabric, or it will break. Who knows? So you should never buy this type of battery operated mini sewing machines because they will cause you more trouble than good. One of the features you always want to have with the beginner's model, and especially if you're getting a sewing machine for a kid, as for the first machine they will ever try to use, is an automatic needle threading system. It sounds complicated, but it's really not. It's going to help you every time you want to thread the machine. You simply take the thread and then you put it down on the back of the needle, and as soon as you reach the area with the hole in the needle, it will help you get the little thread through the hole in the needle. You could also go for a used model if price is the main issue. The mini sewing machines are super cheap, but instead of getting a bad deal for a sewing machine, you should go and get a used model instead for the same amount of money. This way you'll get a real machine. Just make sure you get a model that is still being produced, because when you buy a used model, it might end up breaking sooner or later. At some point you might have to take it to the shop. And if the repair shop cannot find any replacement parts, then they will have to buy another used machine to take out the part that is broken and fit that into your machine. And then you will end up replacing a used part with another used part, and that part might also break eventually because it's not a new part. So make sure you get a sewing machine that is still being produced. You can always see the current lineup on the website of each brand. If you find the sewing machine there, just make sure it doesn't say expired or something like that. As soon as you check that, you're good to go. The last problem we'll go over here is that it's made of plastic. The first time your kid give it a little push and it ends up on the floor, it'll be broken and it'll probably not work anymore. For a kid, you need a good sturdy machine that can stand a test of time and then can be wrestled around with. Maybe your kid will push it down on the floor, and you need to make sure that your kid will still be able to use the machine. If you buy any machine from Singer, the metal frame inside it will make sure that it doesn't break from falling on the floor, or if it tips over or something like that. What you could do instead is to go read our guide on how to choose a really good beginner's model without having to spend a lot of money. There are many good beginner's sewing machines from well-known brands like Singer and Brother, and that will not cost you a lot more. Actually, if you start out by buying a mini sewing machine, it will just cost you even more, because within a few months you will have to upgrade anyway, and then you will have bought 2 sewing machines. Well, thank you for watching this video. If you want to get a few tips on how to choose a real sewing machine that's really cheap and has a good beginner's model, go to our guide. Go visit sewingmachinetalk.com/beginner, and we will have a really nice guide for you, showing you 5 things you need to look for in your beginner's sewing machine, which you won't find in the teeny tiny sewing machines. And you can definitely get a much better deal on a used model instead of the mini sewing machines.